Obviously, in other breeds, this isn't something new. Other wool breeds are judged according to grade. So the fiber is assessed, the micron is assessed, and then the fleeces are put into the grade that they are relative to their micron. So this system is using that model, and so it is something different than what we have done traditionally with alpacas. So I'm going to hand the microphone over to Cheryl, and we're just going to start talking through the actual system and then go into some more details.
Okay, hi, and I want to thank everybody for participating. It's hard to have a demonstration if you don't have fleeces. So it's really nice that you showed up and that we have these. What happens is the fleece needs to be prepared as you would in any fleece show, because the fleece judges in this system, as our regular, our current fleece judging system, we're looking at this as it becoming yarn. And we're looking at it in terms of its end product, what it is, and that combines a bit of genetics and your own handling. So the fleece is on the table in front of me, and the first step that I have to do is take samples, shoulder, mid-side, rump, and lower mid-side, that will then be aligned in the cutlery tray. Is that not the best, right? Very smart. Yes, Amanda loves to travel with these through the airport. So, and then this, once those samples are aligned in there, then that goes to the station for measuring, right? These are the samples that will go into the machine for measuring. At the same time I'm collecting those, I also collect samples shoulder, mid-side, and rump, and those are samples that are used for measuring length. And that's actual length, the actual length, not relative to each other. It's a measurement of the actual length. So that's happening over on this table. You want to pan to that table? That's where that scoring is taking place, and while that measurement system is happening, then the fleece judge is looking at the other traits on our scorecard for evaluating the fleece. There's still work for the fleece judge. The lines that are in yellow are all the items on the scorecard that are measured, that come from the program. Does that make sense? So this is a combination of part that is visual assessment with measured assessments. And so the first thing, I'm just going to read through the items on this scorecard. I will still give you a handle score using the same methodology that I've always used for doing handle. And then visual uniformity, and that handle score is out of 10 points, which for Wakayas, usually your handle score is out of 5. Well, that's pretty easy, people. You just double it. Now, the next one is visual uniformity, because the machine is going to give you a uniformity variance score. You're going to have your actual 4-sample micron, and then you get a variance between the samples, which generates a score. But I am still looking at the fleece on the table in terms of the uniformity of micron. So I still take my samples that I always have done to do my uniformity score, only the uniformity is now out of 15 instead of 10. And I really like that, because that gives me more range to give feedback to you about the degree of uniformity that is seen in that fleece, because we know that that uniformity of micron is so critical no matter what the grade is. Even, people go, even grade 6. Bring it on grade 6 when it's uniform. It's beautiful. It can be quite lovely. So we don't have to be fineness snobs. We're talking about within grade. And so that visual uniformity out of 15 points, my density score, I get to have 10 points now instead of my 5. Again, pretty much I'm looking at what I have done in the past and doubling that number. Brightness score out of 10. Style, crimp, character is also out of 10. fibers greater than 30 is now 5. And you're like, what? Doesn't that matter? I don't have to skirt them anymore. Wrong. It matters a lot. It matters a lot. However, do you see what we've already done? That number is influencing handle. It's influencing the uniformity micron score. And so by the time we got down to that fibers greater than 30, it's really important as a breeder to note that. We're not saying that it's not important, but then wait till I go down even a little bit more. You're going to see it's very important, but that is now out of 5 instead of currently 10. Color purity, color uniformity is out of 5. And then we get management faults for you. That's good feedback, because instead of just getting impurity, stain, and damage out of 5, what is it? So the management faults have contamination, meaning these are management, meaning if you have properly prepared and thought about presenting the fleece as it's ready to be made into yarn, then you would get full points. Nothing would be deducted, because that means that there's visual attention to that perimeter skirting. And if you haven't done that, then what often happens is the belly fibers are there, the armpit fibers are there, we have second cuts that are there. And guess what? Those belly fibers and armpit fibers, which tends to be very high in micron, where you have very high coarse fibers, that if they're in the yarn, guess what? Then that impacts your score. So instead of that percent over 30 being 10, we have 5 points here where I would address it again in contamination and poor skirting. So -5 possible for contamination. That's all the vegetable matter and the broken tips. And then skirting is where we can look at that degree of variation from all the bits that shouldn't have been in the fleece. And then the tenderness and cotting is another area. Do you need more information than that? Okay. Quick overviews.
So the fleece has been sampled in those 4 areas, and as the FiberLux machine has sampled, we're just looking at average fiber diameter. It's not doing anything else, just average fiber diameter. And you can see on the sheet here, you're going to get this back with your fleece. So these are the tested samples. So coming from shoulder, mid-side, rump, and low mid. Because we've done this fleece show model in a number of other places, in the beginning people were like, oh, how can that work? That's not, So I'm like, take your samples and test them again. I don't mind, they're your samples. And so it's been very positive for an in-field machine when we're looking at just average fiber diameter to get a good reading. Then we are also taking the length samples from the shoulder, mid-side, and rump. They're being measured stretched, okay, because that's obviously relative to the curvature in the fleece as well. And we are looking at the lengths of the fleece, and then we are looking at the variance between those lengths as well. So if you have a fleece that is very uneven, it's going to affect processing. And so you're going to get deductions if it's very, very uneven. Then we also we're looking at the actual length for the growing period. So we have the calculation in there, annualizing the length, and you will get awarded points according to the growing speed of that fleece, because we all know some fleeces are short stapling, some are longer stapling, so everything grows at a different rate. So that's calculated according to the day's growth, annualized, and that is a calculation also that is given back in this assessment. So when you get your fleece back, you're going to get a scorecard along with your fleece samples that have been tested and measured. So it's a really important piece of information that you can keep with that alpaca. And hopefully if you bring the fleece to a show year after year, you can collect that data and you have that data to keep with the alpaca in the file. When you get your score sheet back, the score sheet gives you all those characteristics that Cheryl was just talking about, looking at all the uniformity, micron length, etc., all the way down. And then very clearly in this section here on the bottom, it indicates the management faults. So that's something that you, as the breeder, can actually change, whether it's skirting the fleece, depending on how much debris. But that is a management fault. It's not the inherent traits, the genetic traits of the alpaca. So we split it out so you can see those two categories. However, we are in a competition situation, so we're not rewarding someone for not skirting. You're going to be penalized for it if the fleece isn't skirted, but you can clearly see what the fleece traits are and what the management characteristics are as well. Also, as we put all this data into the computer, you'll get all the information back about the sample testing and the length and the annualized fleece weight. So those characteristics are all documented as well. So this will come back to you. Also within the package, there's a very clear sheet that goes through every characteristic that we are assessing, and it shows you the ranges of how the point scores are awarded. So there's no mystery to this. If you want to go back and recalculate everything yourself, you are more than welcome to. So we've really made this very transparent so you can really look at the ranges and the differences in each category and why we are looking at those traits. You'll notice here Cheryl has been judging already today, and as the fleeces come in, they don't have to come in any particular order because they're going to get sorted once they have been tested. So once they've been tested and we look at the average fiber diameter, which determines which grade they go into, then they are going to be put into those grades, okay? As we know, alpacas come in all grades. All fleece is usable, and so we want to recognize that on all alpacas. And certainly there's an emphasis in this system for uniformity. It really is paying a lot of emphasis there. So even if you're in what you would consider a broader or coarser grade, you could be grade 3, grade 4, but still very, very uniform. That alpaca is going to be able to perform well within its grade, okay? So I think what we start seeing over time when we sort by grade is the degree of excellence within the grade and recognizing the genetic value of each alpaca, that they actually fall within these categories, as opposed to trying to make a 28 micron alpaca, produce a 14 micron alpaca. The reality really isn't there. So let's start looking at breeding specifically within the genetic bands and grades and recognizing that all fiber is valuable. We can use all fiber, taking it to end product. So with this as well, when we return the fleeces with the scorecards, we have a example here of the different grades and the end uses for those grades. This also is in this fiber, alpaca fiber application diagram. This yeah, it really is really helpful because it shows you all the different micron ranges and then what those micron ranges are best suited for as far as end product. So what happens, you're going to get your package back with your scorecard, all your data, your fleece samples, your length samples, plus the description sheet and also the information about end use and how to take that fiber to end product, which we really need to be making sure we are getting the fleece off the alpacas and actually into production.
Will this just require one judge for this fleece show?
Yeah, so the fleece show just requires one judge. So what the judge will be taking the fiber samples out the fleece. So the fleece is laid out like we do in a normal fleece show. And then the judge will take the fiber samples, and then the fiber samples go to who is operating the Fiber Lux machine, and then the judge continues with their judging process. So it would be just one judge, unless you had a huge show, and then you would obviously have more judges. And then I thought this was a very interesting, at the end of the day yesterday when we had finished up, here we are looking from grade 00 to grade 5. And even in just this small study of this demonstration that we've done of 30 fleeces, look at the range of grades that you have across those fleeces. So this is us as breeders, as the industry. We are producing all these incredible fleeces and incredible alpacas in all grades. So we want to recognize all grades, and that all of this fiber is valuable and is usable. We need to be getting all this fiber now into end production, and also from a breeding perspective, looking at those traits and making breeding decisions to improve that next generation. So we're all in this together, and I just think this was a really great turnout, because it carried across so many grades, taking this small subgroup for this demonstration. So we really appreciate you as exhibitors that brought your fleeces for us to go through the demonstration to show you.